How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ Sports Talk YouTube channel. Brendan and Sterling coming at you for week number 6 of the NFL season and getting ready for our official game picks of the week. If you missed our Thursday video, please go back and check that out for our Thursday night game picks that went out probably Wednesday morning. And so yeah, make sure to go watch that so you can get all of the game picks this week. But starting out with the first game this weekend, funny enough, it just so happens to be my Chicago Bears traveling over to foggy old London town to play the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Bears in this game are minus 2.5 point favorites.
Yeah, usually the Jags are the favorites when they play over in London, but the Jags have not looked good. They're sitting at 1-4 right now. They barely squeaked out a win, and it's not looking promising. I'm sure they're looking at this trip over to London, going, okay, this is our get right time. We got to make things right, figure out what's wrong, and go back with a winning record. But I mean, even their overall record in London is, I think they're barely above 500. And so it doesn't bode well. Unfortunately for your Chicago Bears, I read today that Jaquan Brisker is injured and will not be traveling with the team. And so that is a big hit on your back end. That's going to hurt the defense for sure. Might open up some shots for Trevor Lawrence to be able to go down the field, especially since we've seen Brian Thomas Jr. now start to break out a little bit for that team. They're utilizing him more. I think this has the potential to be an exciting game and maybe a little bit closer than we thought it would be 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think it's a big loss losing Jaquan Brisker. Now, he hasn't been ruled out of the game. He is questionable at the moment, moving more towards that doubtful status because again, he didn't travel with the team, but that doesn't mean that he can't travel to get over there for Sunday's game. It's going to be one of those things. I would say if he hasn't traveled by Thursday, I would just pretty much call him out at this point, but I think this is going to be a very interesting battle because you have an offense in the Jacksonville Jaguars who has just kind of struggled this year. They've had some success with Brian Thompson Jr. for sure, but Brian Thompson Jr. hasn't gone up against elite corners like Jalen Johnson yet. And it's one of those things where when he finally gets tested with one of the very best in the entire league, how is he going to handle? And with the way that this Bears defense has just been playing this year, again, throughout the first 5 weeks of the season, they're the second best rated defense in the league, only behind the Pittsburgh Steelers. It doesn't really matter where you play, whether you're home or you're away. The defense travels. That is the one thing you can always say. Defense travels. And we've seen this Bears offense continuously get better over the last couple of weeks, and with it last week just showing what they are capable of doing. And if they can just, let's just say they have 80% of what they did last week, I think this is going to be a very big opportunity for the Bears to have. I don't necessarily think a blowout victory against the Jags, but to have a fairly comfortable victory. But with that being said, the Jags did look better last week. They were able to beat the Colts, even if it was just barely. But I think this should be a half decent game. Bears traveled on Monday to London. I don't know if the Jags traveled right away. I would assume that they did because this is basically their second home and they kind of know the routine at this point. But ultimately, I think Bears win this game and I think they cover that 2.5 point spread.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Jags barely won that game, but at least they were able to put some points up on the board finally. So that was promising for them. But that's this team all over is, they don't look good and then they have some flashes. Brian Thomas Jr. might break out here. Tank Bigsby will have a big run or something. But that's kind of it, and it's not real flashy or exciting. And so, I mean, for that reason, I am also picking the Bears to win this game. It's rare we see blowouts over in London, though, so I do think it will be closer. I think it'll be a little lower scoring, like in the mid 20s at the most for these teams. And so, depending on what the over under is, that might be something to look at as well. But As
The
for the
current
money line,
total
I'm going
for the points in this game, it is 44.5.
44.5. Yeah, see, that's still going to be a little risky because both these teams can put points on the board. I know the Bears defense is good, but without Jaquan Brisker back there, that does open up some opportunities. If those cornerbacks get beat at any point, it could be a little more open back there. But either way, Bears win this game, and I don't think the Jags are going to have enough to cover that spread. So Bears will cover that spread as well.
Taking a look at our first 11 o'clock game of the week, where we have the Arizona Cardinals heading to Green Bay to take on the Packers, and the Packers are minus 5 point favorites.
That's a big edge for the Packers. Both these teams have been winning close games lately. Um, I don't have a lot of faith in that. Jordan Love, he's looked okay since coming back from that injury, but he's been making some mistakes. I don't fault him for that interception, that pick six last week. He was trying to save a safety. Was it the best move to make? No, but there wasn't really a good move to make there. You're either giving up 2 points or you're giving up seven. Like it happens. Um, that Cardinals team, though, they're so up and down. It's hard to have any faith in them going into Green Bay as well. I just think the Packers are going to have more here. I think the Packers are going to win this game at home, but the Cardinals will likely keep it closer than that 5 points, I think.
See, me, I will 100% fault Jordan Love for that one. Just throw it away before you even have to get into those types of decisions. It's one of those things where that was a Will Levis interception right there.
Yeah.
That was a Brett Favre interception that always made Packers fans lose their minds and made Bears fans just excited. Yes, I'm going to have a little bit of Bears bias. That was a terrible interception. But with this game, the Cardinals are too up and down. I think you could potentially see Marvin Harrison Jr. have another decent game again. Even his season, it's almost been like 1 week it's been bad, and then the next week it's good, then it's bad, then good, then last week it was bad, and so and as we've both discussed, neither of us think Jair Alexander is a top corner in this league, and he would be paired up against Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably going to have a decent day against him. But I just think this Cardinals defense is what's really going to kind of hold this team back this year, which is interesting to say because Jonathan Gannon is a defensive minded head coach, and we all know my thoughts on that. And it's the Cardinals, they've looked better this year, but they're still probably like a year away before we can actually talk about them and taking them serious. And Jordan Love is just another week healthier at this point, and so he's probably only just going to get another week better. So I do think the Packers are going to win this game, and like what you said, I don't think the Cardinals are going to have enough in the tank to cover that spread, especially at Lambeau Field. And so yeah, I'm taking Green Bay on that point spread. Moving over to the next game this week and a potential for toilet bowl game of the week here. It is where we have the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Tennessee Titans, where the Colts are 1 point favorites.
And that tells you how bad this game is expected to be. I haven't seen yet whether it's going to be Anthony Richardson back or Joe Flacco back. Either way, I don't think it matters. This Colts team is better than the Titans. The Titans have a decent defense, but it's not enough to hold them in games. And their offense is struggling. Them too. I'm not sure. Is it going to be Will Levis or is it going to be Mason Rudolph? Myself, I think it should be Mason Rudolph at this point. Will Levis has not looked good to this level of the season. Much like with the Colts, if Anthony Richards still dealing with any soreness in that hip, go with Joe Flacco. He showed he can put points on the board for your team. He showed he can fight for wins and get wins. And so at this point, ride with Joe Flacco until Anthony Richardson is healthy. And whichever two of these four quarterbacks are playing this week, I don't think it matters. The Colts will win this game. The Colts will cover that spread. It's not going to be that close.
Yeah, I think if Will Levis is in this game, he will find a way to have an absolutely terrible play and ultimately get a loss for this Titans team. And if I'm being honest, if Anthony Richardson is in this game, he also has the opportunity to literally throw this game away for the Colts, But this is just a rough game to watch. If you're a fan of both of these teams, it's it's a tough watch, unfortunately. But like what you said, I think the Colts are definitely a better team here at the moment, and I do think they win this game, and I do think they cover this spread. However, this dumbass singer guy for the Colts, I do want to see the Colts lose basically every single game just to watch that man just kind of crumble, because you and I have seen a lot of these videos and we're kind of done with them. We're over the
And
cringe.
hey, even if they lose, he'll still bleed blue.
I hope he does bleed blue. Blue.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I don't want to see a single Bears fan make a video like that. Unfortunately, we've seen a Steelers fan make the last 2 weeks, and so,
Yeah. Two
I've
of them. Two different ones even.
mm.
Okay, I've got the Bears one saved for if I ever need to send it to you and piss you off. So,
Did you actually find it?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
I hate this trend so much.
Right.
I'm I
But
hate it
anyway,
so.
so for the next 11 o'clock game after the toilet bowl of the Colts and the Titans, what have we got?
We have the Houston Texans taking on the now Drake May starting New England Patriots, and the Texans are -7 point favorites.
I'm a little bit disappointed in Gerard Mayo for that.
Mm-hmm.
I was really hoping he would stick to his guns and go, no, we're not starting Drake May. We're going to let him sit because of exactly what he said. He's going to get killed behind that offensive line. That's what Jacoby Brissett was for. He was the cannon fodder. Let him play because that's going to be rough. Drake May's going to get roughed up bad. Texans, they've I don't want to say they've lost a step, but it almost feels like Stefon Diggs is in the building. You know what I mean? Like they're just not quite as cohesive as they were last year. It feels like something is just a little bit janky.
It seems almost like it's a little bit of a sophomore slump just for the entire team. Like after it's almost like they had that hangover like the next day of where the first few games this season, no one has looked at them and went, they are the same team that we saw from last year. Again, it's like it almost feels like a hangover. Like a Super Bowl hangover, but this instance it's just a shocking playoff hangover, because again,
Yeah.
we all talked about the Texans last year as being this team that wasn't going to go anywhere, and then they won a playoff game. And now it's kind of, I think they're coming back down to earth a little bit. They're kind of in that we're no longer the hunters, we are the huntee. And
hmm
so they're kind of being pressured a little bit more, but
But to their credit, D'Amico Ryans and Bobby Slowick, they're still finding ways to win these games, which is very important. And while the rest of the team looks a little bit hungover, CJ Stroud really doesn't. I was expecting more of a slump from him. He's still one of the point leaders for quarterbacks in the league right now.
mhm.
And honestly, if he keeps this up, he could like he's on my list right now as one of the potentials for MVP this year already. And it would be amazing to see him go from offensive rookie of the year straight to an MVP. Um, this Texans team, they lost Nico Collins last week. I'm not sure how long it was. I heard somebody say maybe up to 4 weeks, but I haven't
Yeah,
looked at his injury report
I
yet.
haven't seen how long the injury is. I don't know if they necessarily have a full timeline for it yet, but
Yeah,
it's one of those injuries where it's unfortunate.
it is because I mean Nico Collins was their number one. You know, I know they brought Stephon Diggs in, but Collins has still been shining throughout, and so it's going to be painful to lose him. They are supposed to be getting Joe Mixon back this week, though, so that gives them that two-headed monster running game in Cam Akers and Joe Mixon. This Texans team, I think we're going to start seeing them settle down now. We're getting into the meat of the season, week 6. We know what teams are. You know, we can know what we can expect from them, and I think the Texans are going to start rolling here, and they're just going to feast on this Patriots team. They're going to look at this as, you know, as we've discussed before, it's like watching Alabama go up against like an FCS West team or something like that. That's what this is going to be. It's the Texans going up against an FCS team.
This game kind of has that feeling of like the Bears going up against the Panthers last week, where it's just like everyone expects the Texans to win. Now, and going back to what you're saying about Gerard Mayo, I looked at this and went, if you are going to start Drake May at some point this year, again, you and I have both agreed unanimously that starting him at any point this season was going to be a mistake. But starting him against the Texans, a team that had 30 something, I think it was like 39 pressures against an already rookie quarterback this year
Hmm.
with a bad offensive line. The Patriots have just as bad of an offensive line, if not worse, over these last couple weeks than what the Bears have shown. You are literally putting him out there with the Wolves with meat duct taped to his body, like with big juicy steaks around his body, and says, "Here you go, Will Anderson. Have a 6 sack day."
Yep.
This is just a terrible, terrible move. Again, the Patriots. Who let's just take a look at and see who they are playing in week number 7. They are going up against, as I struggle to find which team they're going up against. Oh, they're going up against the Jags next week in London. Do it that week. That
Yep.
that
That would have
that
been a
would be
much better week.
that would have been a much better week. But no, they said,
Mhm.
you know what? He can handle it, and it will be a damn shame if Drake May ends up getting hurt in this game and you threw him out there for nothing. But both of us are choosing the Texans in this one, and I would have to imagine both of us are also choosing that 7 point spread, even if it is
Yeah,
in
yeah, we're
Foxborough.
both taking the Texans to win, and the Texans will cover this spread. The Patriots aren't going to be able to keep it close. Like you said, sack game for Will Anderson. I think it's a double-digit sack game for the team as a whole. Because you got to remember, there's a lot of other guys on this team that get after the quarterback really well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Our next game this particular Sunday is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the New Orleans Saints, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a -3.5 point favorite.
Yeah, and my understanding is Derek Carr is now not in
He is
for the
out.
Saints. The Saints have been on a slide ever since that first 2 weeks, though. To anyway, and the Bucks kind of need to get things rolling. They had a really good game against the Falcons last week that they lost in overtime, and that really was a battle for first place in that NFC South division. And this is what the Bucks need to look at. They need to now go out there and beat the Saints to ensure the Saints stay lower than them and keep pace with the Falcons for their next matchup so that they can try to get that back and fight for that division because it really is a two-man race in that division. It's the Bucks and the Falcons. I think the Buccaneers are going to come in here hungry because they lost that game in overtime last week that they played very well, and just a couple of little mistakes, a couple turnovers. That's all it takes sometimes. The Bucks will win this game, and I think they cover that spread because without Derek Carr, as much as we make fun of him,
He's an
not
efficient
having him
quarterback.
out there, they're going to be scoring even less points.
Yeah.
And so Alvin Kamara can't do it all by himself. It's going to be a rough day for the Saints. It's going to be a rough little stretch for the Saints until they figure out what they're doing at quarterback, if Derek Carr's coming back or what.
Yeah, I look at the Bucks last week. It was pretty much whoever had the ball last in that game was ultimately going to win, just because
Mhm.
it was literally a shootout. It was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and Bucks end up coming away with the victory. And you looked at the Saints yesterday against the Chiefs. We talked about how that was the Chiefs' kind of first real proper win of the season, where it wasn't a close game where everyone's kind of biting their fingernails. Wasn't a game where it's going, oh, the ref, like off of one penalty, could have changed the outcome of a game. It was pretty much just the Saints just couldn't compete, and they lost their quarterback. And you know how much I've disliked Dennis Allen as a head coach. I think this is going to be one of those games where we could see him bye bye at the end of next week, just because I think the Buccaneers are just going to walk over the Saints team. I don't think it's going to be close. I honestly think that minus 3.5 point spread for the Bucks is a little bit insulting. It's kind of one of those things you go, really, from some of the spreads that we're seeing, and with
Hmm.
the injuries that the Saints have had. Alvin Kamara is great. He's looking like a top five back in this league again. I don't care what a back can do. He is not single handedly going to win team. We saw what Saquon Barkley did with the Giants, and he is not Saquon Barkley. So yeah, that is that particular game. Speaking of Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles, they are taking on the Cleveland Browns, where the Philadelphia Eagles have a minus 9 point. They're minus 9 point favorites.
Well, I mean, if you haven't watched our top five, bottom five video yet this week, go back and watch it, and you'll understand why the Cleveland Browns are 9 point underdogs in this game because they are the worst team in this league right now. They can't get anything going. They can't even figure it out on the field during the game.
Yeah.
The coach will call one thing and the quarterback goes, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to come off the field instead." Browns suck. The Eagles are coming off of a bye week. They're well rested. I believe they're getting AJ Brown back. I'm not sure about Devonta Smith. Saquon Barkley will be healthy. Jalen Hurts will be healthy. This Eagles team is going to go out there and thoroughly dismantle the Browns.
This
I
is
think.
kind of the get right game for the Eagles because they've had that week off. They're allowing themselves to get a little bit healthy, and they're at home, which is makes this even easier for them. And yeah, the Browns are the worst team in football right now. Deshaun Watson is the worst starting quarterback in football right now. He's the worst. He's probably the worst quarterback on his team right now. And Kevin Stefanski, the biggest knock that I can say on him, because I'm a big Kevin Stefanski fan. I think he's done a great job in Cleveland. Not saying pretty much right after that press conference, we're gonna go with Jameis. I know it's still early in the week, but at what point
I
do you just go out there and state that it's not working? I'm doing whatever I can to win games, and
I will defend Kevin Stefanski here, which is crazy to say because he's a Browns coach and I hate the Browns. I don't think it's his decision. I think this is the owner and the GM looking at this going, we sunk so much money into this. We have to see it through. I think they're overriding him because you can tell he's frustrated. I
mhm.
think he wants to go with Jameis Winston at this point, and the GM won't let him. I have heard reports, and I think Kevin Stefanski walks away from the Browns after this season. I think he's done as the Cleveland Browns head coach, and he just wants to find somewhere that's going to let him run the team the way we know he can. We know he can win games. He is a good coach in this league.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's I feel for him.
it is one of those things where if Kevin Stefanski is has been told that he has to continue to work with Deshaun Watson, at that point, if I'm Kevin Stefanski, I don't wait till the end of the season. I just say thank you. Here's my resignation.
Yeah,
And yeah, because at that point, like you can't stick around. It'd be like us going to our particular jobs and then them telling us one thing that completely affects it and is going to basically almost get us fired, and then us just going like, "Yep, this is fine. I'll just kind of wait out the year until I get
right.
fired." Because again, if he continues to go down this road and the team goes from being in the playoffs last year with all of these different quarterbacks and this and that, and they only win one or two games, you can't say that he's going to have a job at the end of the year.
Right. He should call up the New York Jets and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna quit here and come be your coach since you just got rid of your head coach. Let's do this right now."
I think there would be something where the Jets would have to ultimately trade for him because he would still have contract even if he
The
resigns. But
Yeah,
yeah,
they
I,
would. I know. I'm just saying like Stefanski would be better off on any other team right now because
one
he's just
hundred
I
percent.
think he's getting taken advantage of and he's going to be the scapegoat. He'll
Mhm.
be the one that gets fired for all of this when really it's the GM and the owner that have just
And the team whoever
Destroy
gets
this
him,
team again.
yep. And the team whoever gets Kevin Stefanski as their new head coach next year is gonna be happy as shit.
Oh yeah. But
Moving forward to our
that's enough
next.
shitting on the Browns for now. I think what we're gonna see in this game is the Eagles dominate, put up a lot of points, and I'm gonna say they're gonna cover that 9-point spread,
Yep, I
which
I
is
totally agree.
crazy. We almost never pick spreads that are over 6.
Yeah, like I know for us, it definitely gets to a territory where it's tough to pick. And this is an Eagles team that has struggled offensively this year, but that is
Hmm.
how bad this Browns team is. Where it was almost like I was ready to talk about the next game because of how, like I think it's just basically at this point common knowledge that we are both picking the Eagles and picking them to cover the spread. That is how bad this Browns team is right now. But moving forward, we have the Washington Commanders who are 4-1 taking on the 3-2 Baltimore Ravens, where Baltimore is -6.5 point favorites.
This is the game of the morning window on Sunday.
Yep.
Honestly, like, and none of us, I think, expected to be saying that about a Washington Commanders team, but Cliff Kingsbury has just gotten special things out of Jaden Daniels to start his career. At this, like, season ends now, Jaden Daniels is head and shoulders above every other rookie winning that offensive rookie of the year,
Mm-hmm.
hands down. And it's crazy to think because none of us expected that at the start of the year. This is going to be an interesting and fun game to watch. The Ravens have started to figure out how they need to use Derrick Henry, which means they're scoring more points and they're being more effective and just more dynamic on offense. But their defense is still kind of lackluster. I think this is going to mirror a little bit what we saw last week when the Bengals and Ravens played, and a couple weeks ago when the Bengals and Commanders played. I think it's going to be a similar sort of game. These teams are both going to put up a lot of points, I think, because neither defense is super good.
See, I'm kind of on that reverse. I think this is the week that the Commanders finally kind of they get, I'm not going to say exposed because I don't think exposed is the right term here, but I think they're finally going to be put in their place. And I think the Ravens defense, as much as it's not been a great defense, and last week they allowed a lot of points, but that was with a pissed off Joe Burrow playing at an MVP level just to try to get his team a win.
Hmm.
And I think the Commanders defense is not going to be able to do anything against this Ravens offense. Again, we saw what the Ravens offense can do throughout the year, and they've gone up against the Bills, the Bengals, and they've dominated those two. And I think with that level of defense, I think the Ravens defense is going to be able to get some stops on Jaden Daniels and make him have that first kind of like, oh, right, this is a rookie we're talking about. I've heard people talk about, can Jaden Daniels win the MVP as a rookie? I'm going, guys, it's been 5 games. He's been good. He ain't been that good. Like let's simmer down here. And I think this Ravens team is going to kind of sit him down and go, we know how to deal with a running quarterback, buddy. You are not the guy that we're worried about here. Because we know how to, we go up against the better version of you every day in practice. I don't think the Commanders have a good game. I think the Ravens absolutely destroy the Commanders this week, and I don't think it's close.
That's fair. I mean, I think it is going to be a little bit closer. Like I don't think it's going to be final play of the game close, but I don't believe it'll be a blowout. This Cliff Kingsbury has been willing to open up that offense, and so even if they are down by 14 or 21, he's still going to keep going, and they're going to get garbage points. And so it will be closer. I think the Ravens will win. I am picking the Ravens to win. Um, what's the spread on it?
-6.5 for Baltimore.
Yeah, I think the Commanders will cover that spread. I really do. I don't think it'll be within a field goal. It's gonna be 5, 6 points that the difference is at the end of this game, but the Ravens will win.
Fair. Yeah, this is kind of our first big disagreement of the week, I think, because I I I think the Ravens are just gonna walk away. Like, if honestly, if you were to say to me this was a 14-point spread, I would probably pick the Ravens. I am I am that confident that they are gonna be able to shut down this Commanders offense.
I get you, man. It's just that I've seen the Raiders get it, or the Ravens get exposed already by the team that I mixed them up with, the Raiders. Like they have gotten beat already this year, so they're not perfect.
Nope,
I
they're not
I
perfect.
know they're now sitting tied at the top of the division, and they're not going to look back. The AFC North is their division this season now. Now that they've managed to pull back to that tie, they're going to run away with that.
For sure.
And it starts this week with a win. But I think the Commanders, they'll be able to hang.
Moving over to our first 2 o'clock game, where we have a divisional matchup between the Chargers and the Broncos, who are second place in that division, where the Chargers are -3.5 or -3 point favorites.
The Chargers are favorites. The Chargers don't have anybody. How are they favorites? That's insane to me. The Broncos just bullied the Raiders last week. I mean, saying they're second place in the division where the division is one good team and three dumpsters on fire, it's easy to be second place.
Yes.
Um, but Sean Payton, he seems to be getting something going with Bo Nix, which we knew was going to happen eventually. I didn't expect it this early, so I'm a little bit surprised, and I'm still a little bit wary that there's still going to be some hiccups here and there. But this Chargers team, even after coming off a bye week, they just don't have star power. They have Justin Herbert, and they have Justin Herbert, and that's kind of it. That's the problem with this team right now. They're in this limbo where I really just don't trust them this year. I know their defense was good to start out. Their defense may still be good. I think they should be getting Bosa back. I'm not sure if he was out long term or not, but it's just I have a hard time believing in this Chargers team with how they've performed the last few years when they had talent. Now they don't. And so with the Broncos kind of being on the rise right now, big win after the Raider over the Raiders last week, I think they're going to keep this rolling. I think they managed to pull out a win against the Chargers as well.
Yeah, I look at this game, and we all know I'm a big fan of Jim Harbaugh. I think he's a phenomenal head coach. Wanted him to be the head coach of the Bears. I think he's going to make this Chargers team better than what they should have been, because ultimately, if Jim Harbaugh wasn't there this year, I think this is a 4, maybe a 5 win team. With him there, I think they're closer to maybe a 7 or an 8 win team. But again, that lack of kind of star players is going to be really tough, and they're playing in Denver. I know they had a bye week last week, but whenever you go up to Denver, if you don't have those difference makers out there, it makes it really tough. And Justin Herbert, he's been fine this year, but he hasn't been a superstar this year. And ultimately, I think this is just going to be one of those kind of tough fought victories for the Broncos. They're going to go back and forth. Bo Nix, we see him improving. Again, he's not making those Caleb Williams improvements where it's basically like two steps, and it's more kind of like a half step, a half step, but the improvement is still there. He's even given it to Sean Payton on the sideline during a big win, and basically just going, your play call sucked, my play call won and got us a touchdown. And I think Sean Payton actually kind of likes that, and even he said he kind of likes that. And this team is growing in confidence, and I think the Broncos walk away with a victory. Now, if the Broncos were -3 point favorites, I'd probably give it to the Chargers in the spread. But since the Chargers are -3 points, I have to give it to the Broncos because I have them winning. Next game we have up on the schedule, which was another potential toilet bowl game of the week, where we have, unfortunately, your Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, where the Steelers are -3 point favorites.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, they're hobbled right now, man. Like they've got a handful of injuries on the defense, missing two of their top three offensive linemen. It's it's free fall time for the Steelers this season at this point. You know, with all these injuries that they're missing Alex Highsmith,
Nick
Nick
Herbig.
Herbig, DeMarvin Leal went down. And so it's basically TJ Watt on the edge, and I can't even remember his first name, but his last name's Moon. He was on injured reserve to start the season. He's the second edge rusher, and Isaiah Loudermilk is going to be getting some snaps at edge rushing this week. Like it's going to be bad for this defense. They're going to struggle. Luckily, they're up against a very struggling offense with no Devonte Adams. So there's that. But yeah, this was a very close runner up to the garbage bowl. We don't even know who the starting quarterback for Pittsburgh's going to be. Is it going to be Justin Fields? Is it going to be Russell Wilson? Russell Wilson
We don't
is
even know the
finally
starting
healthy,
quarterback for the Raiders either.
right? Yeah, we don't. But Russell Wilson finally healthy, finally a full participant in practices. Justin Fields did have to go into concussion protocol after that bad hit last week. So I don't know, man. This was a tough one for me to pick, but because it's the Raiders against my Steelers, I cannot in good conscience choose them over my team. And so I will pick the Steelers again. If you haven't watched it, I did a breakdown on the Sunday Night Football game earlier this week. Go back, check that out. As I say there, this defense is still good enough, even with the injuries. They're probably going to find a way to drag this team into the playoffs or just barely on the outside. And we'll end up with that 22nd overall pick again and just restart this storyline next year. For now, this week, I think they managed to pull out a win against a free falling Raiders team that is looking like they're ready to enter fire sale mode.
Yeah, I'm sure you have probably seen my little chuckles and giggles. That's not because of the things that you're saying. It's because I finally looked at the total amount of points that are being projected for this game. 36 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Steelers, unfortunately, at this point, they are kind of like what you said, they're kind of in that free fall at the moment, just with some of the injuries that are piling up. And it's just so lucky that they're going against a team this week that just so happens to be in an even bigger free fall here at the moment, where just nothing seems to be going right. The only thing that has been going right for them this year, it's Brock Bowers. Looks like he's probably the best tight end in football right now, and Max Crosby, when he's out there, is still Max Crosby. And if you have him one on one, Max Crosby is gonna get a sack on that play every single time, guaranteed. But other than that, it's just been really, really, really bad. And yeah, that point spread of 36 and a half, I laugh at it because it's one of those things where you go, that might even be generous. Because, and I'll say this, if Russell Wilson is the starter, I think the Steelers potentially lose this game. I've been really impressed with Justin Fields this year. Everyone knows I was a Justin Fields guy. I knew we had to move on to go get Caleb,
Mm-hmm.
and Caleb is undoubtedly an upgrade over Justin Fields, but I still wanted to see Justin succeed in Pittsburgh, and he's been doing a fairly good job. I'm a little terrified to see him go up against Max with that kind of banged up D line, but I think if Fields is out there, Steelers win this game. If Wilson is out there, I think the Steelers, I don't know if they lose this game, but it's going to be a situation of where both teams are just kind of looking at each other going, we want, it's kind of like that South Park episode where they're playing baseball, where it's going, we don't want to win this game, here's all of our plays. And that's going to be the situation of both teams just trying to one up each other to lose that particular game.
Yeah.
I do have the Steelers winning this game because that defense, even as banged up as they are, you still have TJ Watt. If TJ Watt is out there, you have a decent chance of winning. And this Raiders offense is just so bad, man. It
Mhm.
is just so bad, and Luke Getzey is just such a terrible play caller that I just can't imagine them losing this game. And for me,
Uh,
the point spread all depends on who the Steelers have at quarterback. Again, I
yeah,
think at this point you just say to Russ, "You're the backup this year, and if you don't like it, fuck off."
yeah, and I mean let's be real here that the quarterback is not the problem in Pittsburgh. It's the fact that we appear to have hired Matt Canada 2.0. And I go off a little bit in that video about that as well, and how some things need to change, and this team needs to find a way to get things rolling early. I agree. Justin Fields should just stay in there, and unless if he's dealing with any lingering effects from that big hit he took on Sunday night, then I would rather sit him instead of letting him get blown up by Max Crosby
If
the
he's
next
hurt,
week.
don't play
Even
him.
if it means we lose, if he gets healthy, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm always the component of if he's hurt, don't play him.
Mhm.
Only play guys when they're healthy because this is a blood sport, and
Yes.
it's just not smart to do so. But taking a look at our next game, where we have the Lions taking on the Cowgirls, and the Lions are -3 point favorites.
Yeah, Lions coming off a bye week, so they're going to be well rested. They have looked good in every level of the game. I I see no reason to bet against them. I saw the Cowboys up close and personal last week, and they barely won that game. They won that game simply because the ball bounced one direction instead of another. That
Yep.
is it. And so the Cowboys, they're nothing special at this point. Lions, I think, win this game, and they win it in pretty dominant fashion. I think this ends up being like a double-digit defeat for the Cowboys.
Yeah, the Lions, while they haven't been as outlandish as we thought they could have been this year. Again, other than that Seahawks game, it's been a little bit lackluster from what we maybe would have expected this Lions team to be. But coming off this full bye week and seeing what the Cowboys did last week against the Steelers, Dak Prescott is the only player in NFL history to throw a pick on two different days in the exact same game, and he looked bad. And I don't think this Cowboys team is going to have all of their guys back on defense. It's there's a lot of guys that are hurt there. I think the Lions are just going to walk into Arlington and just say, "We them boys, not you boys." Like they are really gonna, the Lions are really gonna turn them into the Cowgirls,
Yeah.
and I I don't know if it'll be double digit win, but I think the Lions will walk away with a pretty comfortable win. Again, that Lions secondary is still pretty young. They're still pretty green at this point. So, if CeeDee Lamb has himself a big day, it could be something a little bit closer, but yeah, I just look at this and I go, man, I struggle to see the Cowboys competing in this. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Carolina Panthers. And what I'm a little bit shocked to see is Atlanta's only a -6 point favorite in this one.
Well, I mean, that's because the Panthers have been able to start scoring points now that Bryce Young is not playing. And so that's why I think that is. And apparently Kirk Cousins is now actually primetime Kirk Cousins, and this isn't a primetime game. So he might not do as well as he apparently now does in primetime all of a sudden. I don't know what they're putting in the water down in Atlanta, Georgia, but it's working for Kirk Cousins, I tell you that.
Yeah, we're officially in Kirktember or Kirktober.
Kirktober.
And
Yeah.
if you haven't seen it, it's one of those things where someone looked over the last couple years of Kirk Cousins in the month of October, and he's just an MVP quarterback in the month of October. And we saw that last week against the Buccaneers, where it was a shootout. I have no reason to think that the Falcons aren't going to see what the Bears offense did, which again, the Bears offense is still trying to figure a lot of stuff out, and just just dominate them. Like this game, it has the total of 47.5 points in this one. I would say give the Falcons 40 points. Actually, give them 45 points and give the Panthers 3, because the Bears expose how to beat Andy Dalton and the Panthers defense. They showed how to do it, and any smart defensive coordinator is going to go, I know we don't have the players that the Bears do, and the Bears are one of the best defenses in the league, but they gave us at least the recipe on how to do it, and we can cook up our own little version of it. I think this is just going to be a horrendous blowout for the Falcons. The Panthers, again, they're if the Cleveland Browns weren't an organization, the Panthers would be the joke of the NFL. And they have been the joke of the NFL the last 2 years. It's just the Browns are doing Browns things right now, and it's going, okay, little buddy. Like it's like that meme of first time. Like
Yeah.
that's literally what the Browns are doing right now. But I just think the Falcons are just going to murder the Panthers.
Yeah, I see, and I want to feel the same way, but we can't forget this is a divisional matchup. And these division teams, even when they're really far apart in talent, somehow they still end up playing close games. Like even the Saints were able to hang close with the Falcons too. And I know the Saints are better than the Panthers also. The Panthers are terrible, but I just think they're gonna find ways to score and keep it a little bit closer. That being said, Falcons win. And I think the Falcons do cover that spread because they are going to win by at least a touchdown. And 6 point spread, I don't think the Panthers will be able to cover. 45-3, I don't think that's. If Bryce Young was playing, yeah, 100%. But with Andy Dalton, he's shown he knows how to get that offense moving a little bit more. I think we see them able to score against this Falcons defense that also isn't the best.
Moving forward to our Sunday night football game of the week. And again, we
Are
kind
we?
of had 3 games that we talked about being potential toilet bowl games of the week. But yeah, this is Sunday night football game of the week. That doesn't exclude it from being potential toilet bowl. Now, I I think one team is going to be much better than the other, and we have the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the New York Giants, not going up in the New York Giants. Who knows? Maybe
They might.
maybe they might be, but
Joe
the
Shiesty might be feeling feisty, so
he's definitely looking pissed off right now, especially after falling again against another top team that frankly the Bengals should have beat last week in the Ravens, just kind of in those last few moments. But yeah, Bengals are minus 3.5 point favorites going into New Jersey to take on the Giants.
yeah. I mean, for any of you that know, we're in Canada and it is Canadian Thanksgiving this weekend. So thankfully, I will be eating dinner while this toilet game is on. Um,
Yeah, so will I,
it's
but I'll be watching it.
That's fine. Yeah, I'll check it out later. I'm sure the highlights because it'll the 6 Joe Burrow touchdowns, the 1 Daniel Jones pick six, and then I'll turn it off again because I mean, I don't know, man. The Bengals just they are a candidate for worst defense. They might even be able to make Daniel Jones look good this week somehow because the Bengals defense is just horrible. Like I hate the Bengals, but I hope to God their GM is going into next year's draft going, okay, all these offensive players, you're not even on my draft board. We're drafting all defense this year. We need defense because it's bad. It's bad in Cincinnati. I'm worried they might even go 0-6 within their own division once these division games start kicking off. And that's including the Cleveland Browns, which are garbage because their defense is so bad. Because by that time, hopefully Deshaun Watson has had somebody bust his kneecaps and Jameis Winston is playing. Sunday Night Football, we've had a few really good weeks in a row of just really good games, even if the teams weren't necessarily the best. This is going to be, I think, the first flop of the season for Sunday Night Football because we have a really good Bengals offense in Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Mike Gesicki's making a comeback. You got Zach Moss. Like, it's going to be good there. I don't know if the Giants are going to be able to get anything going. They might be able to because it's a bad defense, but they're not going to be able to hang 40 or anything like that. This is going to likely be the only game of the year where Joe Burrow doesn't have to put up 40 points to win the game. And the Bengals are going to win this game and cover that spread.
Yeah, you and I are in full agreement here. The Bengals defense is the worst in football right now. The fact that if you're a Joe Burrow, you have to look at this and go, I need to score a minimum of 35 points just to hope that we win a game. And then if it's a good team, I have to score 45. And he's doing it at this point. Like, he's going out there and putting up the numbers that if most teams put up the numbers that the Bengals offense is doing, they're winning games guaranteed. Like, if the Bengals offense was on the Chicago Bears with their defense, the Bears would win every single game this year and it wouldn't be close. It would be easy Super Bowl favorites. Same thing with your Pittsburgh Steelers. Like if hell, you put it to a top 15 defense, this Bengals team is probably undefeated this year. They're competing for, you know, first place, not just in the AFC, but in the entire NFL. And everyone's going, okay, Mahomes isn't having the best year. And it's clearly Joe Burrow, but that defense is just so bad. But we all know my dislike for Daniel Jones as a quarterback in this NFL. I think he's, is sure he's having a slightly better year than what he did last year, but just because you put gold paint on a trash can, it's still a trash can. And if Malik Neighbors isn't there, it's just going to be even more of a trash can. And yeah, I think the Bengals win this one. I do think they cover this game. And yeah, this is a game that I probably will be watching, but I will be watching with the sound off because we all know my hatred for the Sunday Night Crew. But yeah, Bengals win this one and they cover the spread. But going over to our Monday Night Football game of the week, which also happens to be at MetLife in New Jersey, where we have the Buffalo Bills coming in to take on the Robert Saleh-less Jets. And Bills are minus 2.5 point favorites.
Yeah, I mean, man, New York fans are getting spoiled this season so far, aren't they? They keep getting lots of primetime games, back-to-back games, back-to-back nights. I mean, it doesn't help that last week they didn't even get to watch a touchdown, even though they had both their teams playing there. So there's that. This was a game that I flip-flopped on this very morning. When I looked at it to begin with, I was like, Bills, Jets, Bills. Bills win, for sure. Josh Allen and the Bills, they started out hot. They have struggled the last couple weeks, but we saw them start to get back what they were looking like near the end of that game against the Texans last week. And so I feel like they're going to be able to do that. But then when I saw Robert Saleh had been fired this morning when we were recording this, so it might be a couple days from now when you're actually seeing this. When I saw Saleh get fired, I went, huh. Oftentimes we see a coach get fired in the middle of the season and a DC or an OC get promoted as interim coach, and that first game out, the team just plays well for him and they somehow pull out a win in that first game. Whether that continues like it did last year with Antonio Pierce and the Raiders, probably not for the Jets, but I think this week Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing angry because he lost that game for the Jets last week. And that is an unfamiliar feeling for him. He is not usually the reason his team loses. And he was. So I think he's going to be playing with an even bigger chip on his shoulder than we already see him walk around with day in and day out. And I think he looks at this Bills defense, which is not great, and goes, all right, I'm going to hang up some points on you guys because I know Josh Allen is going to do the same thing to us. Uh, so I do think the Jets will win this game.
Yeah, for me, I know the record where we see new head or the interim head coach kind of just get everyone in and basically playing just to kind of that basic level. I think after last week's game and kind of the Bills on this 2-game losing streak, I think Josh Allen's pissed off. He wanted it last week. You could see how much he was trying to get after it. And Josh Allen so far this year, he hasn't turned the ball over. And when Josh Allen doesn't turn the ball over, he's one of the very best in football. We always talk about it going, oh, Josh Allen could easily be the second best quarterback in football if he just stopped turning the ball over. But all of those turnovers, he hasn't done it this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this continues because I think, unfortunately, that little bit of jet lag coming back from London, again, having to kind of have that coaching situation happen throughout the middle of the week. Aaron Rodgers a little bit banged up at the moment. Like he even talked about it last week of going some of those hits. It takes him a little bit longer with his age to kind of recover from that. And we really did see Aaron Rodgers lose the game for the Jets. And I think the Bills right now they're going to be playing with just that little bit of extra motivation. And again, the Jets are going to be playing hard. I think this is going to be a close game. I just think the Bills are going to walk away with a close victory at MetLife. And I do think with that -2.5 point spread, I think if it was maybe 4 points, I would choose the Jets. If it was a field goal, I would probably do it. I just think the Bills walk away with this one.
Yeah, that's fair. And really, I'm purely basing this on that coach change. That's why I think it's going to be a Jets win. And to be clear, I think this might be the final Jets win of this season as well, because this team, it has not looked good. I think this is just going to be one of those adrenaline games for them. Head coach fired, Aaron Rodgers pissed off. Let's go out there, do it. And it is going to be close. You're right. I think it's going to come down to whichever one of these quarterbacks has the ball in their hands last.
It is very well possible, but those are our week 6 game picks of the week. For Sterling, I'm Brendan saying thank you all very much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment on the video as it really helps us out. But till next time, for us saying peace.